Okay, so this summer I am marrying my best friend, and we met on Match 3.5 years ago, Match.com, and it does work, and I could go into that, but I'll save that for some other time. So since we met, we've been together like side by side, and for 3 years, and he proposed to me a year and a half ago at the top of the hub. On Valentine's Day, so he did everything like just right, and I was surprised I didn't know. And we're getting married this summer, and we're getting married at Marina Bay, and it'll just be some my family and some close friends. We're just going to have a small wedding, and our kids are. This is the second marriage for both of us, and our kids are grown. And even though they're in college with all this crazy expenses, we still just decided that we're really going to treat ourselves. So we're going to Greece and Italy for 3 weeks. And we're taking off 3 weeks from work, and it's going to be amazing. So with that choice, it was really hard to just, to choose, like, where do you go within these two countries, because the choices are just endless. And so we decided to go to Athens, to start at Athens. Just the Acropolis is kind of an amazing thing. And as a kid, I was always like totally amazed with Greek mythology. Watching all those old movies with my father kind of got me hooked. So we're going to go to the islands, the Grecian islands, by ferry for some, and a plane to others. And it was really hard to choose because there's like so many Grecian islands with so much, historical mythology. It's really hard to narrow it down. But we used some travel agents and some tips from friends on where to go, where not to go, what to do, where to stay. And so I don't know if anyone's familiar, but we're going to Mykonos, which is an international hot spot. Not a lot of Greek mythology, but it's just there for just nightlife and restaurants. And then we're going over to Santorini, which is a kind of an interesting island. It's a caldera with water in the center. The volcano top blew off. And I just tell you this because the theory of Santorini is that it's the lost island of Atlantis, which is kind of a cool place to go. And they have these hotels that are built into the volcano, so they're called cave hotels, which is really kind of cool. And then over to Rhodes, and then we're going to Rome, of course. Of course, it's all the ancient sites and the history and the food and the fashion and the amazing wine. And then we're going to Florence, where, of course, it's the Renaissance, and we're going to take in a little bit of culture and go to Tuscany, to the vineyards. It's like one of the things I've always wanted to do. And then we're going to take the train down to Sorrento into the Amalfi Coast and just hang out there and go to Capri and see some sights and drive around and just kind of relax on that part of the vacation, because we'll be doing a lot of running around on the first part, and then wrap it up in Naples and fly home. And so we're kind of spending more time and energy and money on the honeymoon part instead of the wedding part, because it's our second marriage, and we just decided to do it more for just, for us this time, and have a small wedding.
Very nice. Exactly 3 minutes. You nailed it. I'm sure every single person in this room right now is jealous. If you want, you can. Do you want to just grab a seat?
That sounds so amazing.
Doesn't it?
I want to go to Santorini. That's one of my places to.
Have you
The pictures
been?
are so pretty. No, I haven't been.
Oh gosh, the pictures of it are so gorgeous. I can't wait to go.
All right. So you'll actually start first because you're up there.
Okay, yeah, I thought it was good. Oh wait, me or back?
Yeah. No. You.
No, I thought you had a great presence, and you were definitely excited about your topic, and that showed, and it got me excited just listening to you. And I liked the touch of how you proposed, and it was really, I think you really engaged the audience.
Yeah, I agree. It felt very warm. You felt very happy. So that just made us feel good, I think, and that was wonderful to see. And I think you had really nice natural hand movements and natural posture. It just seemed like you were talking sort of conversationally in a way, and it felt very natural.
That's what I had written down too, that you used your hands really well, and I thought that they worked with what you were saying instead of being distracted away from your presentation.
Yeah, likewise, I liked how you were presenting something very personal, that you got excited about how he proposed and where you were going, so reiterating what they said already.
I thought you did a really good job at giving a brief detail on kind of every location, so you touched on a lot and you gave us kind of the key points as to why you're going there without kind of going over it too much.
I I just want to reiterate everything that everyone else said. I think you were really great in terms of engaging us. It was a great story. I was in awe. Like, I'm so jealous, but good job.
Yeah, your enthusiasm was just infectious. I was watching around the room and everybody's like sitting with smiles. So some of the specific things that you do, regardless of the content, you have this habit when you want us, not that you want us to agree, but when you're saying something, you're doing it now, you tended to nod.
Oh, I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
So here's the wonderful thing about that. That is a very subtle, intentional device that, like salespeople, for example, learn to do that, or leadership learns to do that, because what it does is it fosters a sense of, yeah, right, I agree with that. And subliminally, what we're doing is we are agreeing with you in our brains. And that is what you do naturally. So, and it's not in a really over-the-top way, it's just subtle. It also, ever so slightly, your head will lean in when you do it, so it's a subtle way of kind of closing the gap between you and us, and it feels more intimate. So for you, when you presented, it really felt like you were telling each one of us a story as opposed to making a presentation. So it was really inclusive. Your movement, whether it was with your hands or your body in the beginning, it has a certain level of gracefulness to it. So you move around the room and it was just very fluid and easy and relaxed. And it balanced that high level of energy that you have vocally. So your pacing was so interesting. There were times that you really slowed down and you became thoughtful, and then you'd speed up at other points. And when I was listening to it, it was spot on in terms of when you were telling us a lot of the detail, kind of it's important but not critical, you sped up. And then when there was a point that was more important, that's when you slowed down. So what you have, again, I would assume, is a very natural ability to present information. You know when to speed up and when to slow down. So that was really fun to listen to. Your eyes are kind of the soul to, or the lens to who you are. So your eyes, when you were telling us something that was exciting to you, your eyebrows were going up, and if you were thinking about something, your expression became like a little more quizzical. So your eyes are definitely almost a visual aid in and of themselves. So be prepared for, as the audiences get larger, one of the things that I would think will happen is people stare at your eyes. Your eyes are just, big enough and dark enough that they serve as a magnet. And that can be a little disarming when you're suddenly in front of a group and all eyes are staring at you, because it's like this intense look. And for you, if that happens, kind of view it as, I've got them hooked. They're engaged. They're listening to me. So, and again, I was watching the group. Everybody was really watching you, as opposed to taking a lot of notes. I think you did this, and now I don't remember. I wrote down that you kind of asked us in some way whether or not we had actually been to Greece or Italy. Mm-hmm. So again, one little way of kind of cueing us in really early and hooking us at the start of the presentation. And I think that that's just part of your conversational style, and that's what helped to make it more intimate. So great volume. You were so easy to listen to. You smile when you speak. You're very passionate and convincing. I'll be so curious to see what happens to you next week when you do a business presentation. So do you want things to work on?
Yes, that's why we're all here.
So did anybody see anything that they think, if you could just do more of or do less of?
I think just one thing, a lot of so maybe pausing versus saying could be a small critique.
I think also when you went from one topic to the next, the transition words were and then, and then, and then. So I liked that you did transition, but maybe using more of a variety of transition words.
Okay. In terms of content, not a stylistic matter at all. I think more structure or an outline at the beginning so that I knew where the story was going, because at first I thought, it's going to be all about wedding planning, but then it turned out it was a lot more about the honeymoon. Yeah, it was actually very fluid from one thing to the next, but I think it would have been it would have been different to know where I was going to be.
Okay.
Anything else?
I noticed too, just like kind of like with Becca, you tended to like look up sometimes too when you were like going on to the next topic to kind of like collect your thoughts. I'm not sure why, but you would look up. So.
It's amazing, like all these things, like I don't even know I'm doing them.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that I cite and then, and wasn't even aware of it.
Yeah, and I want to be careful. I don't want you to think like, oh, we're like slamming you, but we are truthfully, in some ways in this workshop, we rip you apart and then give strategies to figure out, all right, so if that was happening, how do I minimize the impact that it has? I'm not saying get rid of anything, but it's how do I minimize it so that it doesn't serve as a distraction or it doesn't damage my credibility as a presenter. So these are, I mean, my gosh, we're looking for little things here. So we continue with the little things. Sorry. So with your pace, it was definitely quick at times, and that's where the ums would kick in, and I think that that's also where using that same transition repeatedly would kick in, because it was almost like in your brain, you're like, all right, I finished that part, where am I going next? So from a planning standpoint, the only thing that I ever really pay attention to in terms of truly scripting out are my transitions. And start watching people at work when they're using PowerPoint in particular, when they go from one slide to a next, that's when I see people suddenly fumble, because what they do is they prepare in their heads for the presentation. And the way most of us prepare is we look at a PowerPoint slide and we figure out exactly what we want to say. And then at the moment of delivery, it's almost like what we're doing is we're delivering a dry run. And when we have to go from one slide to the next, that's where I see presenters suddenly fumble because they don't know how to go from one to the other. So that, I think if you pay attention to kind of coming up with almost a Roman numeral outline and then figure out, all right, how do I transition from that point to the next one to give it that level of cohesiveness and fluidity would be helpful. And that would hopefully resolve some of the ums and the repeated things. So just a pet peeve, you said like it would be kind of cool. So instead of kind of cool, it was kinda. So it's like a Boston thing, right? So just be aware of that. And then the final, my biggest piece of feedback for you is this, and you'll see it, there was a leg twisting going on. So at one point you were like, I don't know how you did it. You twisted a couple of different ways and then they stayed twisted. And then you did the fatal fly. You went back on a hip, which it's like the mommy pose. Normally you see it where people do it leg to leg and we go back on the hip. And we have kids. That's how we carry our babies. So you were doing it like this way. So here's the weird thing about this, and I'm glad this room is all women. Men have this really internal reaction to women standing on a hip. It's something primal, and they see it as a demure, defensive, weak body language. Women in the same audience don't even notice another woman doing it, probably because, again, it's just hardwired into us as moms. But this is an organization, this is an industry in which there are a lot of men out there. So just, again, be aware of the mommy pose and not going back on the hip. And I do it all the time, and that's where heels, even though you are in heels, kind of make a difference. Yeah, I'm amazed that you could do that leg stuff with the heels like that. So that would be my biggest single recommendation for you, because everything about you was so strong.
Okay.
You were really, really, really good and engaging.